guys, it's Reagan and welcome back to another video. Today I am here with my August TBR, and to be fully honest, I am just throwing everything at the wall and trying to see what sticks. My TBR for the month is ambitious and just kind of full of a little bit of everything. I can't exactly pin down what it is I feel like reading, so I wanted to give myself a broad choice, kind of a buffet of books, if you will. I was honestly kind of inspired by Noelle. I watched one of her recent TBR videos and also decided to give herself a bit of an aggressive TBR for more choice, so I thought I would embrace that idea, so here we are. August TBR, let's go ahead and dive right in. So I truly have a mix of genres here. I have some fantasy, I have some contemporary fiction, I also have a thriller and historical fiction story. The first book that's on my TBR is The Black-Tongued Thief by Christopher Bowman. This is a newer fantasy release that I feel like is going to be a quick and really fun read. I'm hoping it's full of wit and humor as well as adventure, but essentially this is a dual perspective story that kind of brings two unlikely characters together and they go on a quest. And our first main character is Kinch, and he owes the Takers Guild quite a bit of money for his education, as they have taught him everything from pickpocketing to pulling off larger heists. So he decides that he is going to rob the first person he sees to try to get this debt dealt with. Fortunately for him, the target he decides to pick is not an easy one to steal from, and that is our other main character, Galva, who is a knight and also a veteran of the Goblin War. And then from there, their fates and lives get entangled and they venture off on a quest together. I really love this idea of like unlikely people working together. I feel like their dynamic is going to be hopefully very funny, sort of a down on their luck thief character and probably a grumpy knight, but we shall see. I've heard really excellent things about this. It's also not too long, so I'm hoping it'll help kind of spur my reading as well, but this is a book I definitely hope to get to this month. Next up is a very anticipated read for me, and I want to get to it before the end of summer, and that is Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is of course Taylor Jenkins Reid newest release, and I have read her two previous books and really enjoyed them, so I wanted to jump into this. Also, I am traveling to California later this year, so I feel like this could be vibes for that, you know? But this essentially follows one dysfunctional surf famous family in Malibu in the 80s, and the entire story, I believe, kind of takes place on a very short period of time. Specifically, it might be over the span of one single day. You shift between all of the characters, but essentially it's on the eve of this big party they throw every single year, and it ends with the house burning down, and I think it also kind of emulates the falling of their family. A bunch of secrets kind of rise to the surface, and I've really enjoyed this author's other works, and I'm hoping this is just juicy and dramatic and full of family angst. I'm also possibly going to listen to the audiobook of this, so if you've read this, if you've checked out the audiobook, let me know, but I feel like this could also be a really great, not super long read as well. I'm battling a bit of a reading slump, so I'm trying to read some shorter books, and I feel like this could be a great option. Next book on my TBR is a recent July release that I just wasn't able to get to in the past month, and that is She Who Became the Sun. This is one of my most anticipated reads of the year. I've been counting down the days, and I'm definitely going to be checking this out right at the beginning of August, as I'm just so excited. This is said to be Song of Achilles meets Mulan, and it's said to be a bold, queer, and lyrical reimagining the rise of the founding empire of the Ming Dynasty. I've heard so many good things about this. Early reviews, current reviews, post-publication have been so strong. I don't know, I feel like I'm gonna love it. Anyone else just like see a book and you read the synopsis and you're like, yes, that is for me 100%. I'm definitely going to be checking this book out early in the month of August and hopefully filming a reading vlog, but this will definitely be read this month. Another book I for sure hope to get to is The Jasmine Throne by Tasha Suri. This is a book I was really looking forward to, but have gotten even more excited about since I've seen so many comments from you guys. I feel like so many of you have read this and told me how much you really enjoy it, so because of that, I feel like it's a must read. I hear it's explosive, fantastic character dynamics, politics, has it all, but essentially this is a dual perspective story following two characters, again, kind of working together in an unlikely fashion, sort of fates collide, if you know what I mean. The first is Princess Milani, and she has been trapped by her despotic brother within the crumbling walls of the temple. She herself dreams of vengeance and tearing his kingdom down. We also follow Priya, who is a maidservant, and she has been forced to hide her birthright and her magic because of her past, and she herself dreams of freedom. So I believe these these two characters come together. I'm hoping there's some romance between them and basically, you know, like fight to destroy an empire. It just sounds so exciting. I feel like it's going to be really, really fast paced. And honestly, I'm just really looking for a fantasy novel to hook me with lots and lots of action. So I have a feeling this might be that. Next up, I have two middle grade options that I'm hoping will kind of be good palette cleansers. At least one will be. The first is Arusha and the Song of Death by Roshni Chokshi. I read the first book within this middle grade series, I want to say late last year, and loved it. It has the humor, it has the adventure, it has the mythology that I just absolutely love in middle grade, and this particular series just really, really blew me away. I'm not kidding when I say it's just so funny and endearing, and you will immediately fall in love with the main character, Arusha. But essentially, in the first one, she basically finds out that she is a descendant of the Pandava brothers, which basically means that she has access to supernatural powers. And also at the beginning of the first one, she basically touches an artifact that kind of freezes everyone around her, and she has to go on a quest to save her family and everyone else in the world. She meets friends along the way. She meets animal companions. She goes to a Costco. This again is just a classic quest middle grade setup. So much fun, and I feel like I will just fall in love with it. I love the first one so much, so I've been meaning to continue on with this series. But I've also added this to my TBR. Next book I hope to get to is the second book within the Dark Material series. I reread The Golden Compass back in May and loved it. This is my first reread of this series since I originally read it in middle school, and this was always kind of considered to me one of my all-time favorite series. So I really wanted to revisit it now that I'm a bit older and see with time and age and space if it's still something that I really, really enjoy. Luckily, the first one, The Golden Compass, absolutely blew me away. Honestly, it's so much darker and more political than I remembered at all, and it's really making me excited because I feel like there are some political aspects to the story that I maybe just didn't notice or care about at the time when I read it when I was like 12. So I do hope to read The Subtle Knife this month, which is book 2. I actually recall book 2 being my favorite when I read it the first time, so I'm curious to see if that stays true or not. But yeah, I'm going to continue on with my reread of this and this beautiful bind up edition. It's just stunning. I love it so, so much with The Subtle Knife. But if you're not familiar, the Golden Compass series, basically in the first one, follows our main character Lyra, and she basically lives in a world that is similar to our own, but also very different. In this fantasy world, magic does exist, as well as technology has kind of evolved in a slightly different fashion, kind of steampunky, as well as politically speaking, religious organizations hold a lot of power, not only within a social realm, but also in a government realm, as well as a science realm as well. In the story, Lyra kind of goes on an adventure to try to save her best friend Roger, who has been kidnapped. Along the way, she meets all sorts of people, including a really powerful and grumpy polar bear, and she basically is just trying to save the day. The story itself is very, very intense. The world is really richly imaginative and really fascinating. Again, kind of how it foils our own. Within The Subtle Knife, I do know there is a location change, but of course everything is still connected. So again, really, really looking forward to picking it up. I feel like it might be a new favorite for the year. The next 3 books on my TBR are kind of more of the murky ones. They sound really good to me right now, but we'll see if I read them. But nonetheless, I am really looking forward to them. The first one is The Bone Season by Samantha Shannon. I've actually already read this. I read this right when it came out about 4 or 5 years ago now, but now that the third book recently has been out in the world, I feel like it might be a good time to reread this and continue on with the rest of the series. I remember really enjoying this at the time, so I'm curious to see if I still feel that way with the reread, and if I do, I can continue on with the next 2 books. I personally really enjoy Samantha Shannon's writing. I've read a few of her other books as well, and I know this series is expected to have quite a few books, which actually very much appeals to me. I love a long fantasy series, but this is a near futuristic story set in 2059. And in this story, we follow our main character Paige, who works in the criminal underground in London. And why she works in the criminal underground is because she is clairvoyant. And under Scion law, anyone who has a magical ability can be arrested for treason, and basically power kind of manifests itself in different ways. And specifically, our main character Paige is known as a dreamwalker, which is a very rare form of magic. But at the beginning of the story, though, some events go wrong and she finds herself arrested by the government. And so begins kind of a journey of beginning to to understand both the political aspect of this, kind of learning more of her magic, and in general just getting more embedded within this society. Again, I read this book many years ago, so there's not too much that I remember, but I do recall there being a romance that I very much enjoyed, as well as just like very cool magic, and I liked the underground criminal setting, sort of this grimy London vibe as well. So I feel like this is a good time to pick this book back up and reread it and hopefully really love it. Next up is a book that I've been trying to read all year long and just for some reason have not picked it up, and that is A Man Called Ove by Fredrik Backman. Again, this is incredibly beloved, an international bestseller, and so many books by this author are just loved and read, and just everyone seems to really like them, so I feel like I really want to jump on that bandwagon. In general too, this book is not too long, and I'm hoping it's a bit of an emotional hard hitter, kind of a feel-good story, at least that's what I want. In the story, we follow a very grumpy man. He's a man who lives by strict routines and kind of looks at other people as frivolous. He's also the chairman of the neighborhood association that kind of keeps everything in line, kind of keep everything in the neighborhood in line, if you know what I mean. But Ove's life is kind of turned upside down when a new young family moves into him next door, and slowly his distaste turns into something like camaraderie and love, and I think this is a story of found family and him kind of forming new connections and also kind of having a second chance on life, an old dog learning new tricks, if you will. I'm hoping again that this might make me cry, and everyone seems to love it, and I've also been saying I would read this book like all year, and it's already August, so I'm running out of time. So this is also hopefully going to be read. And the next book that's on my list is a historical thriller. I've actually been craving a thriller, and I don't know if this is because I feel like fall is around the corner, so they're sort of calling out to me, but I've decided to go with The Devil in the Dark Water by Stuart Thurton. I'm specifically craving sort of a whodunit, very classic style mystery story. Those are my favorite types of thrillers, as well as I believe this has an unreliable narrator, as well as a sort of disjointed quality to the structure, and we don't really know if we're supposed to be rooting for our main character or condemning him to like prison. Actually, this is set in 1634, and we follow our main character, Samuel Pepys, who is considered one of the greatest detectives of his time, and he's currently being transported to Amsterdam to be executed for a crime he may or may not have committed. He's traveling with his very loyal bodyguard, Arndt, who is determined to prove his longtime friend innocent. But no sooner after the ship leaves harbor, things begin to go wrong. I think like bad omens begin to appear, and possibly the voyage itself might be thrown into chaos. I honestly didn't want to read too much about the synopsis of the story, given that it is a whodunit classic style thriller, so I want the mystery to just really pull me in, but I love the historical setting of this. I'm hoping it's very atmospheric and just overall like strange and bizarre, and I don't want to guess the ending, so this is one that I really am excited to read. And then the very last book on my TBR should not be too much of a surprise, and that is Rhythm of War by Brandon Sanderson. I'm hoping to finish this book this month, but we shall see if I get there. I obviously have a very aggressive TBR, and it's also all over the place. I'm not quite sure what it is I feel like reading. I feel like I've been reading a lot of heavy books, both in the fantasy genre and outside, so I think if I have like a few lighthearted moments, I can get back into Rhythm of War, which has been a little emotional, I won't lie. But I am absolutely loving this book, and I'm really looking forward to see how the plot continues to expand and evolve following all of my favorite characters. But this, of course, is on my TBR as well. Alrighty guys, that is my August TBR. Let me know down below some books you hope to read this month, as I would love to know, and I will see you soon with another video soon. Goodbye!